This podcast is a proud member of the Unidentified Network.
On the Track is a monthly web TV show about cryptozoology, natural history, green issues, and whatever else the team feel like making up as they go along. Enjoy!
So what have we got exciting that's coming up in this episode, Mr. John?
Well, Hennis, in this week's episode we go back to Lake Champlain, where Katy Elizabeth is going to tell us all about her new book.
I really like the old credits.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name's John Downs. I'm the director of the Centre for Fortean Zoology, and I would like to welcome you to another episode of What's Happening Over There. I'm sure I can hear some guns from Brixton.
So, Rosita, I hear you've been doing scientific experiments down at the Youth Outreach Centre in Brixton.
Oh, Barry, yes. We've been trying to recreate what the American government was secretly doing in the 1950s. It may have been linked with the Roswell UFO story.
What's that then?
Oh, we've been using the kids to test out the effects of high altitude on the human body by strapping them to weather balloons and sending them up and seeing what happens to them.
Well, I'm not quite sure what to say about that, but I would recommend anybody interested to check out my mate Nick Redfern's book, Body Snatchers in the Desert, which tells the whole sorry story of what happened after World War II, when Japanese weather balloon and high-altitude balloon bomb technology was taken back to the United States, and the experiments, which were supposedly banned, continued. But anyway, my name's John Downs. I'm the director of the Centre for Fortean Zoology, and welcome to another episode of On the Track. Every Wednesday evening at 6:30 for about a quarter of an hour, although it's quite often longer than that, and every Saturday afternoon at 3 for half an hour, but quite often longer again, we bring you a miasma, a mishmash, a montage, a mixture of, hang on, I want more words beginning with M. Lauren, what begins with M?
Mouse, of course.
Thank you, Lauren, I can work with that. A mouse of hard science, weird shit, and surreality. What's surreality, you might ask? Well, better ask him.
I was the first king of England. I defended England from the Danes. No, not Simon and Thomas. And the only thing that anybody ever remembers about me is burning those bloody cakes. I didn't even burn those bloody cakes. That's the reality.
A big hand for His Majesty King Alfred. And now we've done with all this stuff, it's over to the lovely Katy Elizabeth once again. Now, changing the subject completely, you've got a book out. I know you've got a book out because I'm the one who published it. So tell us about your new book, my dear.
Okay, so the book is Water Horse of Lake Champlain, The Search. And I did have the book published before, but it was only out for a short amount of time. I had just a small amount of copies available. Um, and then I reached out to you, John, to see if you could publish it for me. Had some issues with Amazon before. It was just it was a nightmare trying to get stuff done on Amazon. Um, and I wanted it to be revised and done correctly as well. I had a number of copies out in my own private stash that I did sell to. I did sell a lot of copies to people, and I went to different events and sold copies. But then I said, let's add some more things to the book and revise it. And then I reached out to you, John, and you did such an amazing job. And
Thank you.
for and I really appreciate your help on this. And I'm hoping that people that never did get a chance to get a copy of the book will get a copy, and it will be coming out soon on Amazon and other platforms as well. Um, the book is really different because it's not just a reiteration of stories that a lot of times when there are books out there about, say, the Loch Ness Monster or Champ or Bigfoot, the reiteration of stories. Of course, you're going to get your stories somewhere, but what's different about this book is it's about 13 years of compiled data that I've collected over the years, water temperature readings, different, just there's just so much in this book that it took me quite a while, probably 2 years to write the book. And it's got this has so much data of my personal data that I've collected myself that nobody else has. Sonar images, echolocation recording graphs. There's just so much stuff in here that you will not see in any other book on lake creatures. So that sets it apart from any other book on this phenomenon. There's also mention of modern reports, which it's kind of funny because one thing I want to point out about the modern reports is that I don't usually get reports until it's so weird. People will say, "How many reports did you get this year?" And it sometimes I'll get reports, say for like, say the person will say, "Oh, well, back in 2000." It's like, okay, that was quite a while ago. It takes them all this time to report it. A lot of people are afraid of ridicule, so it takes them years and years and years to report a sighting. So I don't always get reports every, like, for that year that they're reporting them. Then also I start talking about the morphology and behavior of these creatures, how these creatures are very similar to other creatures around the world. The family ties, I call it, across the globe of Champ, Nessie, Ogopogo, and other lake creatures around the world. The great debate, I call it, what these creatures could possibly be. And I have a totally different theory than most people. The plesiosaur is the most common, of course, but I don't really believe in that theory per se. So that's mentioned as well. And there's just so much in this book that is different. I'm not going to spoil it. That's why I'm not going to say too much more about the contents of the book, but it's very unique, and I really encourage people to check it out.
I'm going to ask one question which comes up from what you've just said. Do you think that all the lake monsters, and I really don't like the word monster,
I don't
in
either.
lakes around the Northern Hemisphere, and indeed the Southern Hemisphere, but particularly in the Northern Hemisphere, do you think they're all the same thing, all the same species?
I think that most of them are, and if they're not exactly the same species, they're a branch off of that species. So you get like the family tree. So you have this species here. It might be just a little variation difference in the morphology, just something a little different. So I think with Champ, Nessie, Ogopogo, I think they are the same. I really do. Some of the other ones, you've got some of the other ones like in the Irish lakes and stuff. Some of the morphology's off a little bit different. It depends. So, but very a lot most of the morphology is very, very, very similar to me. But yeah, I think they're most likely the same species for sure. It's just like at Lake Memphremagog, which is not far from Lake Champlain. I believe those are the same animals as Champ because of the morphological similarities. And it's like literally 2.5 hours from Lake Champlain. So at one time, that was all a huge sea. So that
Yeah, it
makes
was the
total sense.
Champlain Basin, wasn't it?
Yes. So it makes total sense to me.
I've always been fascinated by the accounts that round about the last ice age time, there were actually whales of known species in what's now Lake Champlain, and we know that because we've got the subfossil remains. And I find
Yeah.
that totally fascinating.
Yeah, the state fossil of Vermont is the beluga whale because of the beluga whale skeleton that was found. And they call that the Charlotte whale, which was found in Charlotte, Vermont. And originally they had thought it was the skull and bones of an ox or a horse. And then they got a hold of Zadok Thompson. He was a naturalist and he looked at the bones and he said, no, this is a beluga whale. And it's kind of funny because when you look at the skeleton of this beluga whale, it looks quite different than a modern skeleton of a beluga whale. It's more, how do I put it? A little bit more streamlined. Like I've looked at the skull compared to a modern day beluga whale, and it looks a little bit flatter. It's weird. It's got a little bit of a difference to it than a modern day beluga whale. It's kind of weird. So, there, and that's not the only whale skeleton that's been found around Lake
No.
Champlain either. I think there in total, supposedly, and I like to know where all of these are. That's something I need to get a hold of the University of Vermont and ask them because they keep things quiet. They don't say much, and I kind of wonder if people have actually found something like a champ skeleton or fossil or something because where are these 12 other beluga whale skeletons? Why are they not on display somewhere?
Isn't
Are
there,
they?
wasn't there another species of whale? There's at least one of another species of whale that was found in Lake Champlain.
I haven't heard of another species. But they have found seal bones as well, and those are not on display anywhere either that I know of, because I've been to the Perkins Geology Museum, and that's where the Charlotte whale is, and that's closed now, which is stupid. I don't know, ever since the pandemic, that's been closed. You can't even go there and see it anymore. I don't know what's up with that either. Um, so yeah, like why are they keeping this hidden from the public? That should be a learning that should be for people to see, the public to see, to learn about the history of the Champlain Basin. I don't get it because I would love
No.
to see the other skeletons, and that's just an amazing piece of prehistoric history.
Well, I think you need to get some volunteers onto that because I think that needs to be sorted out. You need to find out where all the other remains are, the citations for who found them, and
Yeah.
even if they don't exist anymore, photographs of when they were found. Whilst doing a little bit of research after finishing the interview and before I started to edit it, I found the website of Carleton University in Canada, which has an earth sciences school, and it appears that I was right, because it says the fossils of a beluga whale were found in the Champlain Sea sediments of Lake Champlain in Vermont. A picture of its fossilized skull is shown below. The fossils of many other species have been discovered in these marine sediments. They include Phocina, the harbour porpoise, Megaptera novagale, the humpback whale, and Balaenopterus physalis, the finback whale. Back to Katy.
Yeah, I love that. You know me, I had so many irons in the fire that I'm just like, and I think of things like that, and then I have to put them to the side because, of course, now I have my champ research stuff coming up on Kelpie too. So I'm like, I'm all stressed out trying to get all my equipment together, but that'll be a great winter project. I'm definitely going to do that because that's really important.
I had a very similar conversation with Dave Scott yesterday, and we ended up saying to all the people who are watching this video, if there's any of you in Canada, or in your case, in America, who want to help, you have got plenty of room for volunteers to do legwork.
Yeah.
Because I think that's important. I think that's the most important thing. We're going to have to get more people involved because you are going to burst if you do all of it. If you do all of it at once, you're going to go completely bonkers.
I'm always going completely bonkers with it, but it's what I love to do. I think it would be really valuable though, especially to have people on the Canadian side looking. I really don't have any, I'm going to be honest, I really don't have any reports from the Canadian side.
So once again, Dave Scott, if you're listening, Mr. Scott, get in touch with Katy and find us some sightings.
Yes.
Dave Scott, brilliant. He's really useful guy.
Oh yeah, we talk on the phone once in a while. It's been a little while and he'll message me. He messaged me the other day. We're kind of chatting back and forth. But yeah, if he could find some sightings on that side there, that would be really, really helpful. I had talked to a woman at a book signing event that I had done for my second book, and that was up in Champlain, New York, which is up near the Canadian border. And this is back in, I think it was 2014. No, wait, 24, yeah, 2014. It's, oh God, time goes by too quick. You know how that is. And I was doing this book signing at a library, and I didn't expect many people to show up. It was this tiny library, but oh my God, like there was probably, I mean, it filled the library. It was a small library, but I mean, it was chock full of people. There had to be like 70 people. I mean, it was like a sardines in a can in this library. I'm like, holy cow. Because they had advertised it in the newspaper. It was for the Champlain History Club. So I thought it was small library. No one's really going to show up, but I was really surprised, and it was the first time I ever spoke about Champ in front of people. So of course I was naturally nervous. So I was with Dennis Hall. He used to research Champ, as you know, and I was nervous as heck. But when we were there was quite a few people that had stories, different sightings that they had or heard from other people. And this one woman, her grandfather was in Canada and he lived not far from the St. Lawrence River, and he had a sighting of what he believed was Champ. That was the only one that I've ever gotten from anybody. I've heard like things word of mouth, but no details, no name. But that's about it. Nothing to amount to. So it's kind of weird. I'm like, I always make the joke that they don't have a passport to go into Canada or a passport to come over here and say, oh, hey, I'm coming to visit. So I don't know. It's really strange, but I'd love to get some Canadian reports. So yeah, Dave, help me out. Please help me out.
Don't I remember? Oh, by the way, if you've heard clanking sounds, Archie's been nibbling at his side and made it raw. So he's wearing one of those plastic cones to stop him nibbling at himself. So when he runs along, comes in and out of the room and shakes himself or has a scratch, it makes the plastic cone rattle. And I'm not going
Oh,
to stop the dog coming in and out of the room while I'm recording, but I have to explain what the noise is.
poor Archie. I know how much they love those cones.
He's being very good with it, in fact. He's even sleeping in bed with me, still wearing the cone. He hasn't taken it off yet, which is pretty good.
Oh, he's a good nephew. He's a good boy.
What I was wondering, do I remember you telling me, while still on the subject of whales, do I remember you telling me you recorded the sounds that whales make in an aquarium in a public aquarium? You recorded the sound of beluga whales.
Yes, I did. And that's actually in the book as well. I did a comparison where I had gone to Mystic Aquarium in the state of Connecticut, and I had sat next to this big tank where there was two beluga whales, and I did some recordings of them. And one of the recordings is very, very similar to the 2014 recording of echolocation that I got in Lake Champlain. Um, I thought that was really amazing. And there's a couple of graphs in there compared. So you have the graph of the echolocation from beluga whales, and then you have the graph of the echolocation from Lake Champlain from 2014 as a comparison. You can see the similarities. So that was really, really amazing to see the similarities. Not that I believe that they are cetaceans or mammals of any sort, but my theories in the book, sharing the Champlain Sea together, there could be some form of mimicry going on there. That's all I'm
Or
going to say.
it could be two different things. What's the chances that there might still be one or two remaining beluga whales from that population?
It could be, but the problem with that is I think you would be seeing them all the time, especially being white.
Yeah.
Uh, the social be whales, cetaceans are very social. They have to come up to breathe air. I think we'd be seeing them unless they develop some really strange thing where they didn't have to come up for air, or they changed color or something really, really bizarre, more bizarre than Champ, some sort of weird adaptation. But I don't think that's likely. That not to say that beluga whales couldn't get into Lake Champlain if there wasn't some sort of flooding. There are locks at the top and the bottom of Lake Champlain. The locks up near the St. Lawrence, they if the water was high enough and those were open, there is a chance they could get in. They could probably get in certain places up there. It's unlikely, but it's not impossible. There's been some discussion about that. Um, so I mean, Dennis one time had seen some weird things at night where he shined his flashlight out and had seen some like white shaped torpedo things out in Dead Creek, which connects to Lake Champlain. And he had thought, he's like, wow, that looked like a beluga whale or something. So I don't know. There was also some sounds in Otter Creek that I had gotten that were really, really similar as well, which that could have been the champ animals too, a different vocalization that they do. It definitely wasn't fish. I've done a lot of comparisons with different fish species in the lake, and it wasn't that. So I don't know. There's a lot of weird things in the lake. I think that there's more than just champ as well. There are some reports of giant snakes crossing the road with no appendages. That's another discussion that we can talk
Oh,
about for another show.
oh wow, I didn't know about that.
Oh yeah. Yeah, there's a report, a video that well, I've been working on it for quite a while. A report of a woman that was driving from work. She worked at the hospital in Middlebury, Vermont, and she was driving home and took a shortcut to go to the bridge over to New York. And she saw this big black thing crossing the road in front of her car. And she had lived down here in Florida for quite some time, but she grew up on the lake and she heard stories of Champ. But she saw this black thing crossing the road, and he said, what the hell? Is that a snake? And she said it moved like vertically it did this vertical undulation, which kind of sounds like Champ how they move. But she said there were no legs, there were no flippers, and no head neck type of thing. It was just like this big snake-like creature. And when it moved across the road, it was kind of moving along like inchworm, and it covered the whole road. And that road, I measured that road, and that road was 20, I'll have to double check in my notes. I think it was 20 feet wide.
Good Lord.
Yeah, so and it covered the road. So, and then she said at the end, when it crossed the road, there was this weird thing at the end of the tail that was like bulbous, like a weird thing on the end of the tail. It was like, oh, that's
That's
strange.
strange.
It was the weirdest thing she goes I'd ever seen. And she was, I was afraid. She was, I didn't know what to do when I saw it because she was, I was thinking, well, maybe I don't want to run over this thing because I don't want to wreck my car because it was like, it was probably, I don't know, maybe a foot, maybe 12 to 14 inches off the ground. So she's like, I didn't want to run over it. So I don't know. There's been quite a few reports of these snake-like creatures, and that's in the book as well. Other phenomenon, UFO sightings, Sasquatch sightings, giant snakes around the lake. There's a lot of weird stuff around Lake Champlain. There's a lot of weird things besides Champ.
It's interesting what you say about the snake sighting because it couldn't be a snake because snakes don't undulate vertically. They go side to
Yeah,
side.
I know. It's
But
weird.
you know what it sounds to me like that perennial lake monster suspect, the giant eel.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing.
Have you
Yeah,
got have you got eels in Lake Champlain?
yes.
Mm.
Yes, there is. There's some pretty large eels. On my sonar when I've been going along, you will see occasionally these vertical things hanging in the water, and
Mm.
those are eels. They
Yeah.
like to hang vertically. And a lot of scuba dives, excuse me, I'm having a speech impediment going on here. Coffee. I've seen on the sonar vertically the eels hanging there, and I've heard from scuba divers that have been in the lake that the eels will hang like that sometimes in a vertical fashion. And I've seen them, and some of them I've seen like up to like 3 feet, pretty large. So they can get, but not 20 feet. That I mean, it's possible, I guess, but I don't know. We're definitely dealing with something totally different than Champ with those sightings. I don't know what, I mean, I do believe that it could be definitely some type of eel. And then on the other hand, there's a sighting that someone had of this big creature on the shoreline that when they threw something at it, because they thought it moved, they thought it was a log laying there. And they threw something at it and it kind of popped up like this and it hissed at them. When it opened its mouth, its mouth was white inside. And then it slithered off and went down into like the mud. So I don't know. That sounds like a snake. So I don't know. I don't know what's going on. A couple of really, really strange reports of these serpentine like creatures.
Well, good luck with your trip to the lake later this week, beginning of next week. And do be sure to tell us all about what happened. We'll have you back on the show to tell us all about it. And with all these other mysteries, I think it won't be long before you've got another book ready for us.
I have quite a few that I'm working on shipwrecks, lost treasures, and lighthouses of Lake Champlain. I'm working on a Champ children's book called Hello Baby Champ. I'm also working on another Champ book. Not gonna reveal really what that's about yet, but I will talk about it on a future show. That one's kind of a long process. So yeah, there's a lot of irons in the fire, and I'm really looking forward to getting more out there. And I really hope when I get up to the lake, I'm going to get some more evidence. So fingers crossed. And I really appreciate you having me on the show as always.
Well, it's always lovely to have you here, Katy, my dear, and I will see you very soon.
If you want to support us and help us make more content like these, please press like, subscribe, follow our Facebook page and check out our Patreon.
And as the ghost of Joe Strummer, who's an ever more regular visitor to my little studio, says, don't forget to ring the notification bell, otherwise you'll miss the new episodes. And that would be an awful pity, wouldn't it?
These might look like ordinary, everyday people, but they're not. Let's take a closer look. I'm filling my tomato harness with talcum powder on the moon. Back seats for keep a welcome in the hillside. Cherry ripe, cherry ripe. I live inside of a crab with Rip Van Winkle and the Patty Cake Man. Yes, they were all wassocks. You can tell wassocks by their general was-tardedness. So remember, think once, think twice, think wassock.
That was a public information film.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, is it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. I want to say a big thank you to my guest this week, who was the lovely Katy Elizabeth. I want to say a big thank you to my producer, Louis, who's still gallivanting around America. And at the moment, he seems to be dressed like Uncle Sam again. And I want to say a big thank you to Richard Freeman and V. McCrinnan for various appearances and whatnots, because I really couldn't do the show in its current form without you. I'm going to be back again next Saturday, and what am I going to be talking about next Saturday? Well, for once I know, because we have the welcome return of Ray Howard, the Sasquatch archaeologist, who has got some very interesting updates to tell us all about. And I'm going to be there doing the notifications and the live chat and all the other stuff. Are you going to be there, Mr. McCrinnan? Because if you're going to be there, Mr. McCrinnan, and I'm there doing the stuff that I do, then I'll be seeing you.